Mignon Doran is the friendly, energetic former First Lady of Morehead State University. From 1954 to 1977, as First Lady, she shared her talents and energies with students, faculty, and people throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. She worked hand in hand with her husband, President Adron Doran, to effectively change a single-purpose college of 600 students into a diversified university with an enrollment numbering more than 8,500. Mignon Doran has dedicated herself to the service of people from all walks of life. She is the founder, first director, director emeritus, and consultant to the Personal Development Institute on Morehead State College campus. She also works with groups ranging from students in junior high school to the adult population of the region. One of Mrs. Doran's favorite endeavors has been her work with the Newgate Project at the Ashland Federal Youth Center and the Frenchburg Correctional Facility in helping to provide rehabilitation programs for incarcerated youth. This dynamic lady has sparked enthusiasm and touched the lives of hundreds of individuals during her career. She is a former president of the Kentucky Federation of Women's Clubs from 1962 to 64 and served 10 years as a member of the Governor's Commission on Children and Youth. She is a charter member of the Kentucky Commission on the Status of Women, a former member of the Board of Directors of Pikeville College, and is listed in Who's Who in America, the 1970 edition of Community Leaders of America, and is a member of the International Platform Association. In 1971, the Kentucky Young Democrats elected Mrs. Doran as the Outstanding Woman Kentuckian of the Year. In May 1972, the Morehead State University Alumni Association honored Mrs. Doran as the first recipient of the University Special Services Award. The former First Lady of Morehead State University worked continuously to strengthen the development of student activities and organizations, including the Beaux-Arts, the Future Homemakers Association, Delta Kappa Gamma, and Chi Omega. She is founder of the University Cosmopolitan Club, Queen's Honor Society, the University Women's Club, and the University Younger Women's Club, whose members later changed the name of the organization to the Mignon Doran Women's Club. A dormitory complex was named in her honor by the Board of Regents on the recommendations of the Student Government Association and the Alumni Association. Mrs. Doran was selected as an Outstanding Educator of America for 1975. This honor is based on talents in the classroom, contributions to research, administrative abilities, civic service, and professional recognition. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity today to speak with Mrs. Mignon Doran. Mignon, it's so good to see you again. You have about 50 years of membership and service in Kentucky women's clubs, all the way from membership in the small local clubs to the presidency of the Kentucky Federation. When you moved from the small town of Wingo, Kentucky, to Lexington, where Dr. Doran was working toward his PhD, how did you feel about becoming active and involved in Lexington club work?
Well, Joyce, I felt quite comfortable because, you know, our similarities are greater than our differences. And we were not really too young when we came to UK for Adron to do his doctorate. We had been teaching, you know, like some, well, maybe 20 years, not quite that. But I loved the little town. I loved the little village of Wingo. But I found Lexington quite exciting, and I went there to like. And everything we've ever done And we've moved several times, that is, in the beginning and getting ourselves, squared away. I've always been determined to like whatever we were doing. So I liked Lexington, but the Women's Club served a great need for me there. I think if it hadn't been for the Lexington Women's Club, I might have felt an emptiness in going from a small town to a little city. Of course, Lexington was not the city then that it is now. We have like 237,000 people in Lexington now, as of maybe 50 or 75,000 then. But the Women's Club played a great part in my life and has all these years.
As you have played a great part in the life of the club as well.
Well, thank you.
The Federation of Women's Clubs is a very fine service organization. You received well-deserved accolades during your presidency for service to the Commonwealth. What were some of the projects that you undertook as state president?
Well, let's go back to my early days, though, before we get to state president. Joyce, you mentioned Wingo, and maybe I moved in, we got to Lexington too fast. My club work started in 1938 in Wingo, in this little town. Adron was the principal, and I was teaching, and very young, in my 30s. And, of course, the proper thing to do was to try to make your husband the best principal in the county and to get involved in the community, which I had always done. So I became a member of the Wingo Women's Club in 1938. And we didn't have junior clubs then. Of course, I would have been eligible to have been a junior club woman then, but we didn't have junior clubs back then. So I joined the Women's Club in Wingo in 1938 and started working right in with it. But I think, Joyce, I have always been a volunteer at heart. I have always felt that, like to do things for causes. So I started in with the Women's Club and became very active, and we did a lot of things. I remember while we were at Wingo, one of the little things that I did that they still tell me about, what few are there now that were there when we were there. I taught music at Wingo, and I had a benefit operetta, a benefit musical at the school, and that started the fund that built the little clubhouse at Wingo. So it went from there. So then when we moved to Lexington, we were at Wingo 10 years, from 38 to 48. So then we went to Lexington in 48, and I was transferred. I got the Wingo Club transferred me to the Lexington Club. And the Lexington Club was only organized in April of 48, and I became a member in September of 48. So I kind of pride myself, Joyce, in being almost a charter member of the Lexington Women's Club. But it all started in Wingo, and then in Lexington, and then, of course, in Morehead, and we'll get to that because I owe so much to the Morehead Women's Club for this state presidency that I became, when I became president. If it hadn't been for the Morehead Women's Club, none of these things would have happened. But it all started back in the early days when I was very young and very dedicated to being of service, and service to others is the only thing that makes for purposeful living, and I've always thought that. So that brings us then to Morehead, and then of course I became a member of the Morehead Women's Club, and had it not been for the Morehead Women's Club, I would never have been state president. In fact, that was nothing in my mind was about ever being a state president of Kentucky Federation. But the Morehead Women's Club decided that I should be president. And so they just made me president. I think I'm right, I don't believe there'd ever been a state president from this district or from eastern Kentucky. And so they started the ball rolling, and I became state president, and I will always be indebted to the women of Morehead Women's Club. They've always been an outstanding club. They've always done things well, and they stuck by me when I was president. You can't be a state president unless you have local support from the local club. And I had 199% or 200% cooperation from the Morehead Women's Club. They went to all the state meetings. They helped me in everything I ever tried to do in the Women's Club. And I love them for it.
And you stuck by them. They had priority treatment. I know, having been a member of that club during that time, that when many of the national figures came to Kentucky because of you, your invitation to them, that the Morehead Women's Club was given special treatment, special seating, and all of those nice things. Yes, you did. Would you tell us some things about the people? We've just mentioned Lady Bird Johnson. Would you say some things about that very special time when she came to Lexington?
Well, my last convention, as you mentioned, I was president from 62 to 64. And my last convention was in May of 1964. Well, of course, Mr. Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, had just become president after Kennedy's assassination. So Mrs. Johnson was sort of a real fresh first lady. And I had her booked to come to my last convention 2 years before. At the time I had her booked, she was the vice president's wife. Well, I had no idea that when she became the first lady that that promise would hold true. And I was so excited when it did. She held to her promise and she did come. But Lady Bird Johnson was a very, very sweet, kind lady. And you know, you and your mother met her, and I believe you had your picture made with her.
Yes, we did.
She was a nice lady. And that was an exciting time. And now, when I think of having done that, how crazy I was to think about having the first lady. I guess I was young enough to be daring, but we had a good meeting, everything went well, and some strange things happened that evening. Of course, you were there, and Morehead State College, Morehead State University stuck by me too, because I used all of our students and our faculty and everything else for programs. And the night that Lady Bird was there, well, I had Morehead State University up there en masse. They were doing everything and really doing it well. So we were seated at the speaker's table, and naturally, and Mrs. Johnson said to me in the early part of the program, "I have to do my speech now." And I said, well, she said, "I am scared," and said, "You seem so calm." And I said, "Well, I'm with friends, but you're with friends." Well, of course, the program had been printed and approved by the White House, and logistics all worked out about her being in that building. What do you do when the First Lady says, "I must speak now"? So here was a long program, and here was this, and here was Lady Bird down here to speak, and here she wants to speak up here. So I introduced the First Lady, which was a great experience for me to have the opportunity to introduce the First Lady of the United States. So she did her speech, and Nancy Thornberry was my aide. Back then we had an aide to the president. So when Lady Bird got up to speak, Nancy came to the back and pulled my dress and said, "Nani, can't you read? You put Mrs. Johnson on at the wrong time." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you about it." So Mrs. Johnson did her speech, and I'm sure that 2,000 people there, Joyce, thought I flubbed the dub because that I put her on at that time. But we made it all right. Lots of coverage, if you remember, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Our staff here can appreciate this, and I'm very proud of the Morehead University TV staff, and I feel very, I'm grateful that they're having this program today. But we had CBS and ABC and NBC there covering the First Lady, and Newsweek magazine, Latest Home Journal magazine, Washington Post paper, and Cincinnati Enquirer, and you name it was there. Well, lots of coverage. The lights were flashing. as you know, as I say, you were there. It was an exciting time. I did have important speakers at our state meetings, and I think, Joyce, that programming is the real secret to having the state meetings well attended. Mm-hmm. You almost have to have programs that will draw the women into the meeting, and I was fortunate that I could, because Adron helped me, and I had the benefit of the university to, you don't go anywhere solo flight. Somebody helps you. Everything you do, somebody helps you. You're not that great as an individual.
Well, you attracted so many big name people to the state when you were president, and also when you were hostess for the General Federation. I know who some of those people are, and I'd like for you to add to the list.
Well, if I can think of them, we had Franklin Delano Roosevelt Jr., and we had Stuart Udall, who was Secretary of the Interior under President Johnson, and he was working with Mrs. Johnson in her environmental beautification program. Well, I had him, and Marilyn Vanderburgh was the former Miss America, and let's see, Robert Montgomery, the movie star, and then can you think
Anita
of
Bryant?
Yes, Anita Bryant. I was hostess to her at the General Federation level. Now, you know, the General Federation, we're international as a club now. It's a General Federation of Women's Club, but it's an international club. And so after I was served as state president, I served 5 or 6 years at the General Federation level as hostess to speakers. And then I got into a great many celebrities there, you know, and meeting important people and nice things to do.
Well, you had done such a marvelous job attracting such fine speakers, well-known people to the state when you were state president, that it's obvious why they wanted you to be hostess of speakers then for the General Federation.
I've had some nice honors, and I'm grateful for it all. And as I say, somebody helps us be whatever we are, and I still go back to the fact that Little Mustard Seed started with a little mustard seed at Morehead, with the Morehead Women's Club, my club work at that high level, and it was a high level and I appreciate it. But if it had not been for my local club, I never could have done it.
Well, it was quite an honor to the local club to have you in that role. I just must mention a few other names here also, though, that you didn't mention. Wasn't Desi Arnaz here as well? And Jack Valenti?
Oh, yeah, Jack Valenti.
And Robert Montgomery?
Yeah.
Betty Furness?
Yeah.
The list goes on.
Desi Arnaz.
You're being very modest, but the list goes on.
And Rosemary Clooney.
Rosemary Clooney,
of course,
right.
Desi Arnaz was Lucille Ball's husband, you know. And he was a scream. That was a funny man. Yeah.
About projects when you were state president, I know that Kentucky received 29 General Federation awards when you were president of the Kentucky Federation, and that Kentucky was one of the few states to buy 2 $1,200 permanent seats at Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, seats that today bear a plaque honoring Kentucky. How did you raise $2,400?
That was an interesting thing. For us to get 2 seats in the Kennedy Center in Washington was really great. South Carolina also got 2 seats. They were $1,200. The opera seats were $1,200 each, so that was $2,400. And the way we raised the money, we didn't ask for donations. We sold greeting cards. And now we sold a heap of greeting cards to make $2,400. So now, Adron and I have been to the Kennedy Center Performing Arts for 2 or 3 concerts. And the first time I went, after we had made this donation and had bought those 2 seats, I told Adron, I said, let's go early I just can't be in Washington and go to that center and not see our seats. So we went early that evening, and the 2 seats that Kentucky bought is in the very center aisle, and it's a silver gold plaque, and it has Kentucky Federation of Women's Club 1964. So that if any of our viewers go to Washington, I wish they'd go, and especially the Morehead Club women would go find the 2 opera seats that they helped to buy. Yeah, that was one of the big things. And of course that helped us in getting 29 awards from the General Federation that year, because they thought that was an outstanding thing. And look what it would have meant had every state bought 2. And so we stood out in that. And another thing that we did, I think that was important, and during that tenure was I started personal enrichment workshops at each district in each of the 9 districts, and where there was a college. And the college then would give us faculty and staff members to conduct these workshops on personal enrichment and self-improvement. And they really were very successful and well attended. And of course, we had ours in this district. We had it at Morehead State. But that was one of the things I think I took great pride in, because my theme was expanding horizons through quality service, using education as your tool. And so we played education, And of course, Morehead State was so supportive of me through this, but this served as a great recruitment thing for Morehead State, my being president, because we had 14,500 members, and most of those were mothers. And so it helped us in recruiting students, because they knew us, and so it was good for them and for us. And so I was always glad that my being away, the Morehead was paid back in the long run for my being gone so much from campus during that period. But the board was very agreeable to it and wanted me to do it. But I had no ambitions to go on up in General Federation, because I wanted to stay here on campus where my first love and where my job was.
I would like to ask you some more about Personal Development Institute in just a moment, but first of all, let me ask you about the Status of Women program that you established through the Women's Club.
The Status of Women?
The Status of Women.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, prior to a Commission on Women in the state.
Well, that was a division that we put in during my tenure, the Division of Status of Women. And then following that, under Governor Ned Breathitt, the Commission for Status of Women was inaugurated. But at the time that we put in the division for Status of Women, there was not a Commission for Status of Women in Kentucky. But I'm not saying that came out of ours by any means or measure. Excuse me, but we did later get the Status of Women Commission, of which I was a member. And I think Governor Breathitt, he respected our program and attended programs and spoke at our meetings at different times. He and Bert Combs, when we were talking about the people that attended on our program. John Sherman Cooper, United States Senator John Sherman Cooper, and Lorraine Cooper were on our programs. And of course, those governors, Governor Frank Clements from Tennessee was on our program, and Cecil Underwood, Governor of West Virginia. So all those, but the programming, I think, I prized that highly, and then those divisions that. But I guess I started at the state level, Joyce, and after we moved to Lexington in 1957, I became state music chairman. And while I was state music chairman, I started playing the organ at the games. Of course, at the games, and I played them at the games. At the meetings, I had basketball on my mind. I played for all the state meetings during the luncheons and dinners and in between. So then they established that, and now they still have, I don't know if they do or not, I believe they do, still have music. They did for years, have music at all the state meetings, and while I was state music chairman. Then I became division chairman. That music fell under the division of Home Life. So I was division chairman, Home Life, Art, Literature, and Music. And then following that, I became second vice president of Kentucky Federation. And the duties of the second vice president was programming. And I mean, you were sort of in charge of programming. And maybe counseling or working with the local club presidents. That was sort of the duty of the second vice president. And then I became, the next term, I became president of Kentucky Federation. But that's how I led up to that.
Well, you mentioned playing the organ at the meetings, though, and then you mentioned basketball. I think we need to mention here that there were many years that you played the organ at the Kentucky State basketball tournament.
17 years.
For 17 years. And here on campus as well for
I
the
played for all of the
Morehead
home
State
games. That was fun.
That was a wonderful time.
It gave me an opportunity to feel that for the students to feel that I was really a part of their life and that I was not untouchable. And it was a good time.
I would like to ask you some more about the Personal Development Institute, which was an extremely innovative thing. That was your baby. You wrote the materials for it, you developed the course, you put the textbooks together. I recall that it was a favorite at Morehead State, one of the most popular courses that students took, and you were one of the most popular professors. Would you relate some of the experiences of PDI?
Well, I think PDI started with me so far back, Joyce, I can't remember, because I have always had a great desire to be better than my before self. I've always felt that we can all be better than what we are. So back when I was even in high school, I used to play do the music for commencement and for the grades operettas and all the programs. I did that and worked with the students. And then when we went to Wingo, though, in my homeroom, we had homeroom. I don't suppose they have homeroom now. But in my homeroom, I'd take that 10 minutes every time and teach the students good manners and how to eat and how to talk and those things. So I recall very distinctly. And this man, by the way, right now, Joyce, that I'm talking about, I won't call his name, but he was a student, and he said to me, we were getting ready for the junior-senior banquet, and he said, Mrs. Doran, now we're getting ready for this junior-senior banquet. How much of that green stuff do you eat on your plate? Well, I gave them a little lesson on how to eat at the banquet. But now this man is very, very rich. And I saw him not too long ago, and he said, Mrs. Doran, I'd have been a dropout if it hadn't been for you. And I want to thank you. He said, I'll never be able to repay you. And I said, well, the way to repay me is for you to help others be better than their before self. But those are some things. But after we got on to PDI here, I think that's one thing that's keeping me going now as an octogenarian. The fact that students come to me now, well, like you, high achievers, and say, you touched my life. You touched my life. Well, you know, I start walking a little bit faster and holding my shoulders up a little bit more. You touched my life. So PDI gave me an opportunity. I had over 5,000 students take the course when I was directing the institute and writing the materials. And they did it without college hour credit, so that was great. It did, if you remember, it was on the transcript, they'd had it. But then my husband got it in the curriculum, and now they get credit for it, which is great. But
you have touched so many lives, and I would like to, if we can get the camera a little closer to focus on this. This is an article from the Sunday Herald Leader, Lexington Herald Leader, January 25th, 1976, the Kentucky Lifestyle section. This is written by Sue Walgren, the lifestyle editor. And the headline, for Morehead students, Mrs. Doran adds the social graces. And we have a picture here of Mignon Doran with her quote, "Little things that count." And then on this side, we have a picture of her with Dr. Adron Doran. So it's one of the many things that you have done that have indeed touched the lives of so many people.
Well, Joyce, one other thing I was pleased with here at Dean Holmes, with my connections in Lexington at UK. Are we off now? Dean Holmes helped me get sororities here. And we didn't have any, we were not eligible for sororities when we came here, and fraternities. But Dean Holmes had been Dean of Women at UK for so many years, and when we were far enough advanced that we were to have it, sororities and fraternities, Dean Holmes helped me get them. So that's one thing that I have been proud of, that we've made that progress. And I don't know, all the things when you were talking about me, it makes me sort of, embarrasses me. But when I think about it, I think, did I do all that? But we worked hard. Adron and I worked hard. He has supported me in all the things I've wanted to do. And had it not been for him, to push me along and help me, none of this could have happened to me. And he and I have always worked as a team. And of course, we celebrated in August our 63rd anniversary. Mm-hmm. And we've had a good life. And people have been good to us, and we're blessed and thankful for it all. Thankful for Morehead Morehead as a little town, and Morehead Women's Club, and Morehead State University. The whole thing has helped us to be whatever we are.
Well, there's so many things that you have done during the time you were at the university, and at so many other points in your life. And I would like to mention that you founded in 1969 the Morehead State University Women's Club, which brought new faculty women and wives together with those who had been here for a while to make them feel part of the community. Would you tell us about some of the things involved in establishing the Morehead State University Women's Club, the genesis of it, some of those early years?
Well, I felt there was a great need for the faculty wives to know each other. Now, if you're a member of the faculty, you meet with each other, but look at the wives that come here. Maybe had small children. They had no entree in the world to meet the faculty people and the faculty and staff. Mm-hmm. And they are each other. And so I thought, well, now, Morehead State University Women's Club, nothing that would be competitive with the Morehead Women's Club, not a federated club, but simply a social club, mm-hmm. where they could meet and eat cookies and punch and be friends. And it would prove, they would prove to be a support group for each other. And then when they would attend social functions on campus with their husband and or with their wife, they wouldn't feel that they were strange, that they were left out. But they had been a member of the Morehead University Women's Club, and they knew each other. And they could do things together. They could have lunch. They could talk on the phone. They could visit, when they were sick, they'd take each other a piece of pie. So I felt the great need for it, and I think it served a great purpose, and I hope it always lives.
Well, it did serve such a good purpose. It was a community within a community, having the Morehead State University Women's Club within the community of Morehead, and then the Morehead Women's Club as well. One of the projects that you created and initiated during your years at Morehead was the Fine Arts Trio. It is very dear to my heart, as all of them are. The concept is a unique one. What stimulated this idea in your mind?
Well, Joyce, you've heard all of your life that nothing is original. It just must be in the air. But I never did see or hear a fine arts trio. Now there may have been fine arts trio, but I never did see or hear one. And it just sort of came, let's do it. And of course you were the first one, you were the reader, and I believe Lucretia Stetler did piano, and who did
Betty Marzon?
Who did first art?
Was
it Doug Adams? Well, he did later.
She did later. Yes, I think Betty Marzon was the first.
Betty Marzon
and then
was
later Doug
Adams. That was a great thing. And you know, it went over, and I hope you all are still doing that. But of course, you were in the charter. Well, you've been all these years a member of that trio. And we've been a lot of places. I remember, you know, we went to Chicago and performed for a national meeting.
Yes, we did.
But I don't know. As I say, I never had heard of that, but I won't say that it wasn't in existence.
Well, I've heard so many people say that they have not seen it before, even now, all these years later.
But it's a combination. You know, when I go back and think about my women's club when I was division chairman, it included art and literature and music. Well, of course, that had nothing to do with this, but it's also related. Why not make it one? Why not make it one? And I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we've ever done. Well, in the way of entertaining, as well as cultural aspect of it.
Yes, I agree. Al Stewart's book called The Untoward Hills came out that year, and the first time that this group performed together was with the reading of Al Stewart's poetry. You had an autograph party for him.
That's right. I'd forgotten that.
That's when it
You've
first
remembered
took place.
things that I forgot. When you asked me to do this program, you know, so many of these things are my computer. I have to get my computer to working to bring them to the front. They're in the recesses of my mind. But I don't know if I'd had time to really reminisce. This has brought back so many things, and you've thought of so many things that I had forgotten. But you know, I used to teach you students that we're supposed to forget what we do for others and remember what things people do for us. So some of these things have gotten, as I say, back jammed in my computer. But by the way, of course, I go back before computers and before television and Xerox and any of those things. So we've come a long way, baby, haven't we?
We've come a long way. A recent interest of yours is the Kentucky Mansions preservation. You're on the board of directors of the Historic Mansion Preservation, and at your invitation was honored to attend the luncheon at Spindletop last summer. Would you tell us some of the things that the Mansion Preservation Board of Directors are involved in?
That's a great thing that's going, Joyce. I'm glad you brought that up, and thank you for becoming a member. And some other members from Morehead, too. Some other women from Morehead became members. Well, Beulah Nunn, during her husband's tenure as governor, started this program of renovating old mansions that were just falling down, just shambles. And Mary Todd Lincoln's house right on West Main in Lexington was shambles. And but to begin with, Mrs. Nunn had to appoint a committee of equal Democrats and equal Republicans. You know, everything had to be divided politically. So I happened to be the Democrat on her charter committee, and I've been on the board for all these years. And that was, when was that, 60? 60.
Let's see.
It was in the 60s.
The late 60s.
63 I guess it's when he was governor. It was in the middle 60s. Well, she was the one that really worked so hard, and I give her full credit. But now Mary Todd Lincoln House is beautifully restored, and the other one that was in shambles was the Cassius Clay White Hall at Richmond. That was in shambles. So we restored that. And I say we, I did very little but support her. She's the very one that did all that and did a marvelous job, and other things. But those were two that I was particularly interested in. And now I'm serving as vice president of the foundation, and I'm enjoying doing it at that level because I can really get into what's going on and how we're getting things done. In Mary Todd Lincoln Place now, we're building a garden, and you all are helping support that. You've already donated to it. So it's going, and it's helped Lexington. Mm-hmm. That restoring Mary Todd Lincoln House has helped Lexington. It's now one of the sightseeing things. When you come to Lexington, they always have that on the tour, go be sure and go to the Mary Todd Lincoln House. And she, by hook or crook, found some of the original furnishings that were in that house. She knows how to do that and did a great job.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a wonderful thing, and I'm delighted to be a member, thanks to you. You spoke of being an octogenarian. What do you attribute your beauty, your energy, your outlook on life as an octogenarian? What do you attribute this to?
Well, first of all, I have a very happy marriage. We married very early in life, and we've been partners all of our lives in everything we've done. We married when we were in college, and then we started teaching together. Adrian's been my principal, and I've taught. He's been my boss at school, mm-hmm. and so we've been partners. But I think to be older, I tell women now when I speak to older women, as long as you can interrelate with younger people, interestingly, you're young. But when they see you coming and get behind a tree because you're going to tell a big long tale and you can't get to the point, they're going to hide. Mm-hmm. So I think that trying to listen, be attentive to others is one thing. Take care of your health. Be moderate in all things. Take exercise. Eat right. Take nutritious food. Try to have a good outlook, sense of humor, have a sense of humor, and of course go to church, have religion in your life, and your attitude, try to keep an upbeat attitude. You're going to hurt and ache somewhere, and everybody does, so you have to try to conceal your aches and pains as long as you can. But we've had a good life, and we're still busy. And I think that you should do what you can do as long as you can, but I think you have to learn as you get older that there are things you can't do that you once did. So you have to do what you can do well instead of trying to do the things that you once did and make a mess of it. So I try my best to keep busy, but there's things that I have to say no to. And Adrian's busy. He still speaks and looks great. He walks 3 miles 3 days a week, mm-hmm. and he looks great. I exercise, I walk, and I read. You need to read. I read a lot. Mm-hmm. And I try to communicate with people that are interesting. Keep in touch with your friends. Write notes. Make telephone calls, take people to lunch, remember people's birthdays, and keep busy. And I attribute that. It's just hard for me to believe that we have lived this long, and you don't feel that to yourself except these little aches and pains that you have every once in a while. But who knows? We're going to 100.
Well, you two certainly do keep busy. You keep on the road a lot. Will you tell us a little about where you have recently been? I know you just got back last week from...
Well, we haven't been too far away. Well, we went to Harrisonburg, Virginia for a meeting in October, and that was nice. Virginia is a beautiful state, not as pretty as Kentucky. But Harrisonburg is a sweet little town, has 2 or 3 small colleges there. We went there for a meeting. And then we went down to a little town near Memphis, week before last, at Morehead City, Tennessee. And we were there for a week. And let's see where we've been. I can't, this last weekend, we spent the weekend in Sarita, West Virginia, there for a meeting, and we got back Sunday night. And we have, I think our car, we have a new car, and I believe we've had it 3 weeks, and we have over 3,000 miles on it. And we haven't been anywhere either. I mean, no long trips. But we do, we get around a lot. Sometimes I think maybe we do a little back-to-back scheduling that might be better if we had a breather between, but we enjoy keeping busy. And another thing, Joyce, you need to cultivate some younger friends. You need to be available to the younger people, and if the younger people can like your company, that helps you to stay young. Of course, my peers are about all gone. Our peers are about all gone, and that's sad. You go back to where you were, you go back home, and they're all gone. It makes you sad. But you don't look ahead and you don't look back too much. You have today, and just be thankful you have today.
Well, that's a wonderful philosophy. Mignon Doran's civic service has never ceased, as you have just heard. Throughout her lifetime, she has enthusiastically devoted herself to other people through club work, through formal education as a high school teacher in West Kentucky, and as a college professor designing new classes to meet the needs of Eastern Kentucky students, through church work, and as important as any of these, through immeasurable hours of one-on-one contact with young people, convincing them that they have something worthwhile to offer the world. Mignon Doran always says that one never arrives, but that life is always a trek toward further goals and further service. Her beauty, energy, insight, and faith in mankind and womankind continue to be a blessing. Her influence, her equipoise, and her charming warmth and wisdom do indeed make the world a better place.